I just am authentically myself all the time. And when you can accept yourself and you're not acting, you really start to try to improve yourself in a way that's real versus like putting on a show or pretending I'm an extrovert or pretending this or that. Like for me, it's just been this radical self-acceptance.
Hello, and welcome to episode 247 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts, along with strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me and also help others find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Alison Dixon, the Chief Customer Experience Officer at Portnox, a leading zero trust network access control platform. Alison is at the forefront of shaping how technical, high-stakes industries like cybersecurity can deliver world-class customer experiences. With a background that spans HR, sales enablement, and IT, she brings a unique, holistic view to customer success, balancing strategy, empathy, and execution. At Portnox, she's led the change in transforming onboarding into a competitive advantage, expanding CX beyond support, and building programs that reduce churn and drive long-term value.
All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Alison. Alison, it's so good to have you on today.
Awesome, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're going to get into the work that you're doing and how you've learned to lean into your introverted gifts. So tell us about yourself and the work that you do and your journey to get there.
Yeah, I'm currently a chief customer officer at Portnox, which is a network access control cybersecurity company. And so I've had a kind of have a pretty untraditional career path. I started off as a fundraiser, actually, and moved into learning and development, HR, then IT, then sales enablement. So I've done a bunch of different things. And this is kind of the newest thing that I'm taking on and started in January. So it's been almost a year building out the customer experience function at Portnox.
So tell us a little bit more. What does a chief customer officer do?
Yeah. So we, just invested in making sure our customers are happy and growing and reaching their time to value and deploying Portnox and getting their networks secured. So I have a team of technical account managers and customer experience managers who are working with our customers. And so past year, it's just been building and scaling that team.
Yeah. So like you said, you had a lot of different roles and career. What were some key things that led to your being at your position now?
Yeah, I think, and again, since this podcast is about introversion, sort of,
Of course.
my first roles where I was a fundraiser, it was very interaction with people heavy. I traveled a lot. I was meeting people constantly. I was running big events. And I think at that time, I didn't really understand myself enough to understand why that, like, I liked it, but at the same time, I found it exhausting and draining in a way that, like, it's not like I was working in the mines. Like, I was like really, it just was a tough role for me to have. And I didn't really understand why. Complement who I am. So learning and development was a great field for me. It was more building things, focusing on people growing and advancing. And even now it's more deep relationships with our customers and getting them to where they want to be versus, and this sounds bad, and I'm not trying to say that fundraising is this, but sometimes it's pursuing your own interests or your own organization's interests versus your client's interests. So this just far better aligns with who I am, and I think the strengths of being an introvert, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's key. Too often people are thinking they should do something and it doesn't align with who they are. It's when you align with who you are and your strengths and what lights you up. That's where you really thrive.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a far better fit for me. So I think I've kind of have finally gotten to where I need to be. And that kind of comes with age and time and more self-awareness, self-regulation, I would say.
Yeah, definitely self-awareness. We'll get into a little bit more about that. And yeah, some of it comes with time and age. I've learned that too. How did you figure out you were an introvert and did you have to embrace it?
I would say it was sort of, I'm trying to think when exactly it was. I think it was maybe around the time Quiet by Susan Cain came out. And I remember a couple other things happened. I worked at a Comcast and I was on a team with a lot of extroverts. And I remember we did a profile. It was sort of a personality assessment called Insights. And I was the only one who led with blue energy, which was sort of the introverted color, which meant liking data and focus and all of those things. So just some of these things kind of aligned where I was sort of surrounded by extroverts. That book had come out, and I can't remember exactly the timeline here. And then I had taken that personality profile. So I started to understand, oh, this is probably why fundraising wasn't a good match for me. This is why if I have a very socially heavy week, I don't want to do anything on the weekend that involves other people. So sort of understanding what was driving that versus there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to realize that, this is a strength, I think.
Yeah, so many people like yourself, like me, I thought something was wrong with me. And really, it's like, no, you have some great strengths here. You just have to learn how to harness them and do the things that are authentic to you.
That's right.
So what caused you to pick up Susan Cain's book? We owe a lot to Susan Cain because she really did help people to say there is nothing wrong with you, just you're a deep thinker.
I don't remember exactly what caused me to pick it up. I think I had suspicions I was an introvert, and I think that probably, I read a lot, and I think it was a bestseller at the time, so I probably picked it up for a reason. And I remember there was just some things that really stood out to me, and I think it was where she talked about it's not just this clear cut introversion means XYZ. And one of the things is like sometimes I function the best in a coffee shop where there's like other people, noise, ambient, and it's like why? I never understood why. Like I would be in a hotel room sometimes because I traveled a lot for work, and I was like, I just wanted to get out of the quiet and be in a coffee shop with other people, and I could get so much more work done. And she sort of normalized some of those weird things that I thought were just unique to me. And rather than trying to sort of say, like, why go spend the money on a coffee? You've got a perfectly fine hotel room right here. Just stay here. I kind of have leaned into some of those things that I thought were weird at the time that she sort of normalized.
Yeah, that's such a good point because there's so many other aspects to our personalities. I just focus on introversion, extroversion because I think there's so much misunderstanding and it is a 50-50 split. Yeah. But there's so many other factors that, you may need that noisy environment. You may not be chatting with everybody, but you just like the environment. And you just got to figure out what's good and what works for you. And it's going to be different for everybody. We probably have a lot of things in common as introverts, but we probably have a lot of differences as well.
Sure.
And I've taken lots of assessments and there's lots of ones with colors. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's blue and other colors. Some of the ones I've taken have been like green, where it's very analytical, and that's definitely me. So all of that can be very helpful because we're not all the same. And as you know, our teams consist of many different personalities, and it's a good thing. But too often in my life, people try to take a one size fits all approach, like, hey, this is how everybody should do it. And that's not where you're going to get your best out of people.
I think that's right. I think introversion is particularly well suited for this because my relationships tend to be deeper but less quantity, right? It's quality over quantity. I've found that I kind of am more attuned to how other people want to interact versus forcing them into how I want to interact. I think that's made me a better leader. Like there's just a depth and a empathy and a listening gift that I think an introvert has, which I think has made me good at scaling a team of different personalities and different preferences, and also connecting with our customers in a way that, and I'm not saying extroverts are any kind of, it's not like comparison, but I think a gift of an introvert is that ability to listen and build relationships in a really meaningful, deep way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're never bashing extroverts on this show, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge differences. And I love how you said that you try to figure out how people want to interact and not just always do it in your way. And it's so key to understand what those differences are. You know, if you're leading a team, you need to understand this person is going to want to think first. I better do an agenda before the meeting. Or this person is going to want to think all their ideas out. And as we have teams, we just need to understand those dynamics. And when we don't, things aren't going to go as well.
Yeah. And I think that extroverts have a lot of gifts, and I think that they are well suited to very much succeed in the world that we have today, for sure. But I think that there is, at least with some of my extroverted friends, it feels it's a little harder for them to flex their personality or their preferences to how other people want to interact. I think that's just a harder move by and large that I've seen in terms of extrovert. So to me, that has just been a big strength of mine as an introvert.
Yeah. And I love how you said that you're good at one-on-one relationships and you have fewer. And that is the case. So, a myth that we bust on this show all the time is that we introverts don't like people, because we absolutely do.
Yeah.
We just want deeper relationships, probably fewer of them. We love our families and friends and we want to collaborate at work. It's just a different approach. It's a deeper approach. We don't want to stay in the surface level talk for far too long. We want to get to those deeper conversations, and we're good at it.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So, Alison, what's a strength you have because you're an introvert?
I think and you sort of mentioned it with the color energy, again, the analytical thinking strategically. I think thinking a few steps ahead. I think in this world in particular, we're in a constant sort of hive mind of reactivity. There's like the Teams and the Slack channel, it's just like which again, I think is a little bit more of a extroverted way to operate. And I think it's harder to sort of be introverted in a lot of the contexts that we work today. But I think it's a real strength if you can. If you can think deeply about where you're trying to go, what your team needs, how you're going to scale versus kind of winging it. I think that's been a strength that I've had, because I have a really clear picture of like the roadmap of the customer experience at Portnox. And I think that we started out and I knew where I wanted to get to, and we're starting to get to that place, and I've got a clear roadmap of where I'm going next. And I think I've internalized it and I believe in it, and sort of that ability to think in that way is just something I think that's unique to being an introvert.
Yeah. And we're not the best at winging it. Sometimes we're going to come up with quick ideas and know what to say in the moment, but we do better with preparation.
That's right.
So how do you get to that place where you just described having real clarity on what you want to accomplish? How do you get to that place where you have clarity and you understand your strategy and all of that?
Yeah, it's like I'm not afraid to think in the quiet, to be by myself, but to literally journal and think and read. And, it's a lot of that kind of work. And, I love that you said about preparation, because, yeah, I do not wing it. And, I had to go to, a board meeting or whatever. And it's like, you're never going to find anybody who prepares more than me for things like that. Like, you will not catch me out with a question that I don't know an answer to. So I think that I cannot wing it. And I actually think that that's a strength. I don't like the feeling of being caught out in any way. So I think that I'm able to prepare and think really deeply. And I don't mind the quiet and being alone for hours and creating something that I really believe in.
Yeah. Do you schedule time for that deep thinking and strategizing?
Oh, yeah, you have to. Yeah. And I'm over time too, I kept trying, and this is like goes back to just the trial and error, and you read all these productivity books and the scheduling and how it all, like, I have found for me the best way. My days very much have themes. Like Monday, I go to the office. I know no deep work's happening. Don't try. There's putting little blocks on my calendar to do stuff or to think, not the day. But I have a day, it's like Wednesday or Thursday, switching, but I have about 4 hours of just focused work. Turn off Teams, no one-on-ones, and people kind of get used to even your rhythms. So that's been very helpful. And I also think having the predictability for me is helpful mentally. So if I know Monday is very people interaction heavy, I can structure Tuesday to be like, okay, it's going to be light in the morning on people. I'm going to do one-on-ones in the afternoon. I can kind of gear myself up for my more extroverted days. And I know, okay, in 2 days, you're going to have that introverted time. You're going to have that focused time. And so that's been very helpful, that predictability for me.
Oh yeah, and that's a key strategy for introverts is, and I learned this because earlier in my career I thought, oh, I have to be available to all people at all times, and that really didn't work because I didn't have that time to think deeply, to focus, get some work done, and just blocking off time on the calendar for things like this was life changing for me.
Yeah. I have found too that giving 50 to 60% to someone, because you just said the being available all the time. Well, as an introvert, it's very hard for me to be giving 100% to a conversation if I've got too many, if I feel really overwhelmed, if I haven't had the time to focus. And so I've really tried to sort of like, if I try to put myself in a position that I can give 100% in a conversation. And if I can't give 100%, I shouldn't have it. And so then I can deflect that meeting till later. So it's more about like how I want to show up, how I want to lead, and I want to be giving 100% versus giving 60% because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, yeah. There's too many, and you mentioned Slack or Teams, or there's
Yeah.
other IM kinds of things that people are get these conversations going, and we just might not be available for that.
Right.
And it can be very distracting if you're trying to have a conversation or you're in a meeting or you're in a meeting and you're trying to catch up on your email. It doesn't work very well. You're not present for that, whatever it is you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So, how else have you learned to manage your energy?
That's been a key way lately. I think as I'm advancing my career, I'm on a board of an angel investing group. I feel like I do have more sort of social things I need to go to. And like last night, I was at something with a ton of people, networking event. And so I really try to plan out the month. And for me, again, it's that psychological. If I know something's coming, I can kind of you sort of subconsciously prepare for things. And that has been key. If my similar to having to prepare for everything and over prepare, I have found that preparing ahead for the month of like, okay, I know in week 2, I'm going to have 2 happy hours. I'm going to have this and that, or whatever the things are. My my brain will start psychologically preparing for those, and I will start to make little concessions here and there to gear up for that week. So I think the like planning, it sounds sort of simple, but again, the planning ahead, the having my weeks having almost like the days having themes and not expecting a day where I'm going to be interacting with a lot of people, like give it up. You're not doing any deep work that day, so just the being a realist and planning has been very helpful.
Yeah. And, there Susan Cain talks about this in her book, but there's a biological basis for all this. We are deep thinkers and we need to give ourselves time for that. And so much as if I am prepared, maybe even for this conversation or for other conversations or meetings, I get ideas ahead of time, like, oh, be sure to bring this up, or you need to look into that a little bit more. And that's where we do our best. And we can't compare ourselves to others because your extroverted colleague might not need the same kind of preparation that you do.
What makes a great leader? I think it's different for everybody. And I think that if you try to model yourself after this is the way somebody else leads, I'm going to try to be like that. And because a lot of the models are going to be more extroverted leaders. That's just for better or for worse, that's what I think this culture can really value. And I think for me, it's been trying to self-regulate and manage myself first. And that being 100% in every conversation that I'm in, being truly authentically myself, understanding who my team is and what they need from me. So I really think there's not a one size fits all. I think the modeling yourself after somebody you're destined to fail is really kind of embracing who you are, your own self-awareness, self-regulation, and again, flexing your style for the people that you're trying to grow and build. And that's kind of what's been working for me.
Yeah, and that's definitely a myth that we regularly bust. Introverts can be amazing leaders. Just the strategy might look different.
That's right.
What's a key thing that has led to your success as an introverted leader?
It's a great question. Again, I think this comes with age. Like if I had gotten this role 10 years ago, I probably would have been trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
But I've gotten older. It really is. I just am authentically myself all the time. And when you can accept yourself and you're not acting, you really start to try to improve yourself in a way that's real versus like putting on a show or pretending I'm an extrovert or pretending this or that. Like for me, it's just been this radical self-acceptance. And that's kind of, I feel like, I don't know if that's a complete enough answer, but that's what's.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then do you have any other advice for the introvert that wants to move into leadership?
I think it depends on where somebody is in their journey as an introvert and where they are on the self-regulation, self-management. Have you found ways to operate that protect your energy? Again, if I had gotten a role like this when I was a fundraiser, wouldn't have been any good. I don't think I was aware enough I was an introvert. I think my coping mechanisms weren't great. I was exhausted. It just wasn't the right role. And again, I think I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. So I think if I was trying to give somebody advice, it really, again, goes back to yourself, accepting yourself and understanding the things that you need to be successful and to have the energy to be able to give the 100% in your conversations in your life. Like it's taken me an embarrassingly long amount of time to get where I am today, honestly. But it is like you're not weird if you feel like you need to go to a coffee shop and you can't really explain why, that's okay. If you go to a happy hour and you need to not talk to anybody the next day, like you got to sort of do what you need and set yourself up for success versus trying to be an extrovert and think like I should be able to do the happy hour and then have 95 one-on-ones the next day. Like that is not you. You have to accept it and understanding the world is designed for extroversion. It just is. So you're going to feel a little different and that's okay. And it's a strength. I think being different is a strength generally. It makes you stand out.
And it's a good thing, but just so often, and I think I took longer than you to get to this place where, it's like, you know what? I have great strengths. I am a deep thinker. I come up with some great ideas and that's a good thing, but I also need to have some time to do that. Whereas my friend over here might not need the same preparation time or need that same time to set aside for deep thinking and that kind of thing.
Yeah. That goes back to like the winging it. I think there's been moments where people will say, can you just wing it? It's like, no, can't. It would be nice. Like, I guess if you didn't have to prepare, but like, no, I'm not that person. And it might feel like over preparation to you, but it's right for me. And, I don't have to, again, it goes back to that self-acceptance.
Yeah. So, and we chatted before and you actually mentioned this, that somebody was giving you that advice to wing it, and it's like, what have you learned about speaking or giving presentations? I'm sure you give a lot of presentations. What have you learned about that? How do you need to prepare? What are some other keys for you to be successful in presenting?
Again, preparation, the winging it. Because for me, I've accepted the fact that I'm always going to be nervous. And even in context, it's actually gotten worse versus better as I've gotten older. I was sort of hoping for the opposite. Weirdly, I used to be a spin instructor. And so that's like one of the most extroverted things you can possibly do. And maybe I was a little bit more immune at that point. But as time had gone on, my nervousness before I speak in a public setting, and even in a not so public setting, to be honest, is I'm going to get the heart pounding. I'm going to get, it just happened. It's like, and I was trying for a long time of like, how can I make this stop? And I find that I just sort of thank myself that I'm like, oh, you're gearing me up for, it's the adrenaline. I'm going to have an awesome presentation because my body's like getting me ready to fire on all cylinders. So I started to sort of reframe that nervousness and know that no matter how nervous I am, the preparation will come through. And even if you sound nervous initially, 90% of people cannot hear it other than you. And usually for me, first 20 seconds, it settles down anyway. So it's sort of understanding that process and like knowing that you've done this before, you will get through it. It's 20 seconds, you'll be fine, has been helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the fact, you've done your preparation, you've done your best work, you're ready. And then I always tell myself, you're not perfect, but nobody listening to you is either. And as
Most people are in their
introverts,
own heads thinking
yeah,
about themselves. Like that's it. That has been the best gift that I realized. I'm like, no one cares. Generally, like they're mostly thinking about themselves and what they're about to say. And
yeah,
so that could have been a freeing thought of like, people are not thinking about you mostly at all.
right. And that has been very helpful for me too. And also, I think, we have many different gifts as introverts, but I think the power of reflection is a gift that we all share. After you present, you can think, and I always start with, what did I do good? But what would maybe I do different in the future? And you could just work through that, knowing I did my best preparation. You can't prepare for everything, but you can think about it after and like, hey, how'd that go?
Yeah, and I think that there's, and especially in the culture today, we sort of all avoid hard things, right? Like I don't know if you've read like the comfort crisis or anything like that. There's a lot of avoidance of pain and discomfort. And I think that sometimes for an introvert, it does feel like our pain and discomfort is just worse or more obvious because, if you're an extrovert and you have to make a presentation and you're like, this is amazing. I'm not nervous at all and I can wing it. And that's awesome. And that's like a very public setting. And it just feels, it's like, God, it's worse to be an introvert, right? Like that's what it feels like because
Yeah.
it sucks to be nervous and it's harder and all those things. But I always think to myself, like, okay, it's for an extrovert, it's not as a public, but it's probably very hard for them to be by themselves, to have to do the strategic, deep thinking, listening, like some stuff that I feel like is a gift to me. And maybe their lives are actually just as hard, but in a different way, and it's just not as public way. Nobody's gets an easy ride in this life, and it is like pushing through your own discomfort. And to your point, the self-reflection. I've done enough public speaking now where I have reflected enough where I know exactly how this is going to go. And it's just trusting myself that the preparation is going to carry me through.
Yeah. I had a question. So if you were to go back and have the same fundraising job, but now you're self-aware, you're at this self-awareness level that you are now, you think you would have handled that job a little differently?
It's a great question. I think so. I still think that role itself was going to be very hard for me to be successful at, given who I am. And I think, there's lots of things like, right, I don't like blood, couldn't be a nurse, right? There's just, I don't think it's a weakness that I wouldn't be great at, that I don't think that job was for me. And actually I was good at it, but it was really draining. I think it would have been hard for me to be as good at it as I was at the time without being completely drained. I think if I had to go do that today, I don't think I would have been as successful, as self-aware as I am. So I just think certain roles are just not for you and not for who you are. And there's this role today, there's a lot of people who wouldn't be right for this. So I'm I probably would have approached it differently, but again, I still think at the end of the day, it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I love that because and a point I'm making is there would be different strategies for an introvert, but you have to also, so an introvert can be successful at that job, but you may just realize there's a lot of other jobs that are
That's
so
right.
much better suited for me.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think if there was so much one-on-one, like not one-on-one, but there was a lot of travel, and traveling for me is very hard. I like the airports, the plane, like that is a kind of a nightmare. So that by itself was hard for me. And then conversation after conversation after conversation where I'm trying to get somebody to do something on behalf of the organization I work for. It was going to be very hard for me to find a right balance where that was going to work for me in the long term. So I think that it's one of those things. I definitely would have different strategies. I just think that the amount of, I don't know, changing of myself or sort of strategizing I'd have to do to be successful would just be something I'm not willing to do today because I've radically accepted who I am.
Yeah, that's such a good point because there's so many opportunities and we just need to find what really works for us, where we can use our gifts and use our gifts most of the time.
Agree.
So, also, what's your proudest accomplishment to date?
I honestly think, and maybe I'm sure it's recency bias.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I really think what I'm doing now, I think I'm very proud of what we're building at Portnox and customer experience. I can't believe how far it's come since I took on the role in January. It's like a night and day difference. And I think everything just kind of came together. All my past experiences, who I am, what we're trying to do as a business. And, I feel like we've seen really meaningful results in the business. I'm very proud of the team that I'm leading. So everything has lined up that I really feel like what I'm doing now and what I've built is making me the proudest I've ever been in my career.
That's amazing. And that's cool that it's right now. Yeah, that's awesome. Allison, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to add today?
I don't think so. No, I guess just for introverts out there, lean into who you are and, you don't have to change yourself to be successful.
Well said. And that's what I was going to say. You've really learned to lean into your introverted gifts and have found great success with it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I hope you take the time to explore other episodes and learn from other amazing guests. Remember, if you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there is now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the four-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link in the show notes. And I'd love to connect with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts and links to social media for Quiet and Strong and much more. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. So many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.